What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Best Self Blueprint. If you have not tuned in before, the mission of this podcast is to help you move that dial towards becoming the best version of yourself, whatever that means to you. And so typically I like to bring on guests who can share experience, knowledge, insights into their extraordinary lives. So today's guest has quite the resume of big accomplishments. She graduated from UW Whitewater with a Bachelor's of Science in Occupational Health and Safety and entered into a career in which women make up less than 15% of the entire field. And while obtaining her degree, she competed in both cross country and track and field, became the 2022 United States of America's Miss, and devoted countless hours to serving her community in a wide variety of ways. She's a true embodiment of commitment, discipline, passion, and the pursuit of extraordinary. So to officially introduce Sarah Niehueser. Hello.
Hi, how's it going today?
It's good. Sun is shining, birds are chirping. It's a good
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
So as I was telling you, I want to start with
Mhm.
quotes because on your Instagram, you have quite a few that I took kindly to. We limit ourselves and our perception to say that failure is the end, when in
Mhm.
reality, the universe provides an abundance of failures for our good. Failures
Mhm.
are merely lessons we must learn before obtaining our victories. So if you
Mhm.
failed today, congratulations.
Mhm.
So dive into your relationship with failure a little bit because it's
Yeah.
true. A lot of people, failure is the end all be all. If I fail, I can never show my face again. What's your
Right.
relationship with it?
My relationship is a close one. I would say I failed a lot in life. Everyone sees your accomplishments, right? Instagram, social media, face-to-face conversations, it's a highlight reel. So nobody talks about how many times they failed to get to United States of America's Miss or getting to being a collegiate athlete. And so all of the failures that I had in life in pageantry and athletics, just in my, career setup, led me to where I am today, but nobody really gets to see them. And so nobody assumes that other people fail as well. And so I always try and tell people that every time I failed, it was for a reason. I learned something. That opportunity that I failed to obtain, it wasn't meant for me because I wasn't ready for it. There was something that was missing. A lot of times in pageantry, right? You hear no so much more than you hear yes. I've competed in my 10 plus years for so many pageants, and I haven't won most of them. But everyone sees me as United States of America's Miss and thinks, oh, she wins whatever. Not true. Every time I lost, it was because I wasn't ready for it. There was something I had to learn about myself, about the organization, about the job that I simply wasn't ready to take on. And so it's easy to look at that failure and say, well, I'm done, right? I didn't win. I'm never coming back. Maybe I'll try something else, but this is done for me. And they fail to see the opportunities and the lessons involved in why you didn't win, because there's always a reason, right? There's always a reason why that opportunity wasn't for you. So taking a moment, feeling the loss, kind of feeling the failure, but then taking that lesson out of it is so important whenever you want to move forward.
So true. That's
Yeah.
something, it's hilarious, right? Because as most people who listen to this are high achievers, and
Yeah.
all high achievers want the success rate, they want to call the
Right.
big shot and hit the bullseye
Yeah.
right away.
Right.
And that's something I'm still adjusting to. I know it intellectually, but there's the emotional involvement in the pursuit that comes with,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, you call a big shot, you fall short, but then
Yeah.
just being able to step back and analyze, okay, that's the exact
Mhm.
feedback I needed to
Right.
now go and do it again. And
Mhm.
so I wanted to start with that just because failure has been a topic on my mind in terms
Yeah.
of calling shots on big events or calling
Right.
shots in different areas. And I
Mhm.
have a lot of other people, other coaches, clients, friends who are in the same boat where either they
Yeah.
have a dream that they don't even think they deserve to go after, or
Mhm.
they're in the pursuit of it,
Mhm.
but there's self-sabotaging that comes in because of that fear of failure or that fear of
Right.
success and what happens. But I do want to dive into this in terms of pageantry in particular,
Yeah.
because, and we'll get into all the misconceptions around pageantry, to which there are many, but
Yeah.
In terms of failure, why do you think pageantry is such an important thing for young women to get involved in?
Mhm. So when I started in pageantry, I'll take it all the way to the beginning. I didn't grow up around pageantry. I saw the local title. I grew up in Fond du Lac. So I'd see Miss Fond du Lac in the paper or in the news. And I thought, she seems pretty. Her gown that she wore was great, but I never understood why women would compete in it. And so I didn't think that it was something attainable for me because I didn't understand the purpose. And a lot of other individuals, younger, older, they don't get it either. If you're not in the world like I wasn't, you don't really understand the point. And so when I competed for the first time, I got a letter in the mail that said, "We'd love to have you come compete." And I said, "Sure," having no idea what I was getting myself into. And I get there and I realized that these young women are basically superheroes. I had no idea the level of public speaking knowledge and just comfortability that they have on stage with it. I didn't realize everything that they do in their community and how much of a change they really bring about everywhere that they go. And I had no idea the confidence that it could teach you. Everyone struggles at any point in their life with confidence. You see others that seem so confident, and you think, I could never have that mindset. And I was like that too. And so I got into this world and I saw all of that and I was just in awe of how amazing these young women were. And I thought I could never be like that. But in my 10 plus years of competing, I realized that they teach you, right? There's coaches, there's other individuals, there's just life lessons, failures that you learn from. So through that, I have never had a job interview that I'm scared of. I can tell you that. I've never had an interaction with somebody where I wasn't sure that I could handle the conversation. I've always been outgoing because of it. And it's also helped me professionally to deal with situations that kind of may be a curveball. Pageantry is not a script. Those girls, when you see them on stage, an on-stage question, we don't know what the question is beforehand. We have no idea. And so it helps you deal with those curveballs in life and in conversations.
Yeah. And going back to the superhero piece, that is
Yeah.
so true. I mean, even
Hmm.
just again, looking at everything that you were doing, you were competing for the United States of America's Miss on a national level, going to school,
Hmm.
competing in sports at the college level, serving the
Yeah.
community, doing all these things.
Hmm.
And coming from someone who, before we first met, when we did the workshop for the state events,
Hmm.
I had so many misconceptions around pageantry and the type of people who did pageantry,
Right.
and the humble pie that I ate in a matter of hours, just
Yeah.
meeting the caliber of women that are in that room is astounding. And
Yeah.
so that's something I am really passionate about as the very small piece of help that I can have in that community, just to
Hmm.
show people the caliber that comes from getting around other high performers,
Yeah.
building the confidence and self-worth that comes from getting in tune with your authentic aligned self and showcasing
Hmm.
that and doing
Oh.
it in a way that serves more than just yourself.
Hmm.
What to you, aside from obviously there is, like you said, the hard skills of you get better at communicating, you
Yeah.
get better at the walking into a room and owning it. What are a
Hmm.
few of the other big benefits you've noticed from getting involved in pageantry in particular?
Hmm. Friendship is definitely one of them. I, like many others, struggled to be understood as a child. Everything is a popularity contest, it seems, when you're younger. And for some reason, in the environments that I was in, I never felt like I related to others. I had other interests, I had other hobbies, I had other goals that I wanted to obtain. And when I got into pageantry, I realized that all of these women were like minded, like myself. And I've made friendships that I talk to some pageant girls every single day. They're constantly the people that I want to be around. Like you said, being around high performers makes you a high performer. And so it's not just about, friendship, it's bouncing ideas off of each other, developing each other, professionally, socially. Some of these girls are going to be my bridesmaids. I'm engaged. And so some of these girls are going to be in my wedding. And I met them when I was 13 years old and we've stayed in contact. So being understood and building friendships is definitely a huge one that I've experienced. And another one is, like you kind of said, eating some humble pie, getting some failures in there. I learned about failures through athletics, but learning how you adapt to challenges and failures was a really big one for me. Pageantry can throw you for a loop, and learning how to adapt to a lot of changes in a very fast-paced environment when you're on stage or you're backstage has helped me a lot in my professional career. And then lastly, I would say meeting mentors. I've met so many powerful female leaders that either in their careers or in pageantry have really impacted me and helped shape me and my journey. There's so many times in life where I feel like I would have given up and said that dream isn't for me had I not met these women and had I not seen them do it first and see how they handled it and gain knowledge from them. That any moment where I thought there's no way I can do this, I've always had someone standing behind me, supporting me from pageantry that said, of course you can do it. And here's how you're going to do it because I've done it. And that has helped me so much. I truly believe that I would not be where I'm at today had I not met those powerful female leaders.
Yeah, so a few directions
Mhm.
I want to dive into with that. And
Yeah.
I really want to dig into mentorship with you because
Yeah.
that is something I'm realizing with each step forward
Mhm.
with the business and just with my
Mhm.
personal journey through life
Totally.
is the impact of having someone who, even if they don't check all of the boxes, there's
Right.
something that you're pursuing that they did in a way that you want to do, and
Mhm.
leveraging their experience so that you take their mess and just receive the message from it and
Right.
take the good without having to deal with as much of the bad. But
Mhm.
there is something before that that I want to piece together, which is so
Okay.
important. And this is for anyone who does feel like they don't fit in with the quote unquote normal crowd, or you don't feel like
Mhm.
you have the same interests. And I experienced this last night. This is very fresh for me, where I have a great group of friends from high school, and they love going out to dinner, going out to the bars.
Mhm.
And I feel like a fish out of water going out and just being in a loud room with alcohol and
Mhm.
blasting music. And
Yeah.
I will obviously do what I need to do is for a birthday dinner. So
Mhm.
I will hang out, do what my friends
Okay.
want to do.
Right.
But it just goes to show the benefit of having people around you who see the value in pursuing the things you like to pursue. And like you
Mhm.
said, you get around the right people and the conversation just pours out of you with all of these ideas and all of these goals and all of these visions,
Yeah.
and not backing down from finding the right people, because it
Right.
is very easy to, like you said, with the same
Mhm.
thing with following a goal,
Mhm.
finding your tribe, I think is something that's very easy to
Yeah.
fall in the bucket of tolerable,
Oh
when
yeah.
if you just stick it out and wait and be intentional about finding the right tribe, it's
Yeah.
the most liberating feeling in the world.
Yes.
So
They'll never
that
judge you for your goals either. I think that was something really big about being in pageantry is they're never jealous of you because they have their own things going on. They have their own success that they're proud of. And so there's never this level of jealousy when you say, I think I'm going to do this pageant or I think I'm going to do this big thing in my life. It's all support and it's all love because everybody has their own success in that space. And they'll never judge you for it either. I'm sure you had it where you're about to call your big shot and say you're about to do something. And the energy in the room when you say it is just so strange and it's almost negative, like, oh well, why would you want to do that, what's the point? And I've never had it where I told someone in that world, hey, I'm going to do this, and I had that reaction. They're always so excited and supportive of you no matter what journey you choose. And that's huge because that's the worst thing when you tell someone I'm so excited about doing this and they meet you with that negative why would you want to. It hasn't happened to me in pageantry yet, thankfully.
that is
No.
huge. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And trust me, I have called my fair share of big shots, and I have had my fair share of
Oh.
almost like eyes glossing over,
Yeah.
where they just, like you said,
Right.
it's two completely different thought processes. And
Mm-hmm.
I think there's no better option. I think there are people who they find their kind of cruising altitude and
Mm-hmm.
they have gotten what they want and they feel good about it. And then there's the people who there is no cruising altitude. You just want to
Yeah.
keep
Keep going.
climbing. But
Yep.
yeah, finding the people who will promote that and catalyze it for you is such an important
Yeah.
piece to the puzzle.
Mhm.
But now to circle back to mentorship, because I know
Mhm.
this is something you are particularly passionate about right now. How do you find the right mentors?
I think it's a grouping of having the right mindset as a mentee, of knowing who you're looking for and knowing what you want to get out of a mentor. And then also having educated mentors that know what their strengths are and know what they can provide and are out looking for mentees. I think from a mentee standpoint, looking for people that have already taken the journey that you're looking to take is obviously a great idea, and matching up people that'll face the same challenges as you. For instance, as a woman in a male dominated career, having female professors for me was absolutely pivotal. I walked into class on the first day of a safety class, and the majority of seats were filled with men. And I knew that coming in, but it was an uncomfortable switch in my brain that said, you don't belong here. You don't look like anybody in this room. But then I looked to the front of the room and I saw I had a female professor. And I knew that I could follow her. I knew that I could rely on her. And I knew that she had gone through what I'm about to go through. And so finding people that face the same challenges on the same journey is always going to be helpful when finding a mentor. But I think as a mentee, you also have to keep an open mind. You might be doing something that nobody like you has tried before. And so your options may be limited at finding someone who is exactly like you, but that doesn't mean that people with differences can't help you. If you struggle with public speaking and you know that's a huge part of your career, you can always find somebody who is willing to help you with that. Or if you struggle with any aspect of your journey, research people, find people in your area, go on Facebook, go on Instagram, look at tagged photos of maybe an organization you want to join and see who's involved in it and ask them. Sometimes you're not going to get a carbon copy of who you are that has taken the same journey. So be open minded and be willing to give other mentors a chance, because you may find a perfect fit from someone that you thought would never really work in your journey.
Yeah. And what's your
Mhm.
take on, so I'm a firm believer that I have hundreds of mentors that have no idea they're mentoring me.
Yeah,
Tony
literally, yes.
Robbins, Paul
Yes.
Check, Aubrey Marcus, all
Hmm.
again, I'm not going to take 20 minutes just to list people, but what's your take on that side of it? Just seeking
Yeah.
out people in, whether it's online, whether it's in your community, that you
Hmm.
can read literature on, you can watch talks
Yeah.
that they do. What
Yeah.
about the side of being a mentee where you
Yeah.
don't necessarily have a one-to-one relationship with a mentor? What's your
Hmm.
ideas on that approach?
Yeah. So I tell mentors that I educate a lot that mentoring is not about signing up for an organization or donating your weekends. That's what people think mentoring is about, is always being involved in something. But the people that have mentored me the most really have just shown up and been their best version of themselves. And they've inspired me and empowered me, maybe like you said, without ever speaking a word to me or knowing my existence. And so to mentors, I would always say show up your best self no matter what you're doing, because you have no idea who's watching you and who's inspired by you. You have no idea. A lot of times in pageantry, when we go to appearances, there's so many young women in the audience that I'll never get to have a conversation with, but I'm sure that they remember me and they remember what I spoke about and being a college athlete or just getting a degree. And they thought, I love that she did that and I can do that too. But I've never met them. I don't know what their name is, but I've inspired them. And so, as a mentee, if you're looking for someone to be inspired by, go to anything that you can in your community. And it's not necessarily, you don't need a meet and greet, you don't need to sign up for something. Just go and be around inspiring people that are going to show up and be their best. And I promise you will feel inspiration, you'll feel empowered.
So this is something I'm very, very passionate about, which is
Yeah,
even if you don't think you're mentoring anybody, you're influencing everybody.
absolutely.
Everyone you come in contact with, every post you make, every word you
Hmm.
speak, there is influence. And
Yep.
inherently, the way we're talking about mentoring is influencing the thoughts, words, and actions of someone else. And so
Yeah.
that's a challenge I would give to people is even if you don't think you're mentoring anybody,
Mm-hmm.
understand that you are influencing everybody you come in contact with, whether it's
Yeah.
frequently, one time. And to your point, there are people who I've put on events before and met them once or twice.
Mhm.
And I feel a little bad saying this. I don't remember the interaction at all,
No.
but they'll come up to me at a future event and say, "Yeah, I really loved when you said this." And it's like,
No.
well, I'm glad I said it
Right.
because at least it did something. But yeah, and
Right.
just that understanding of the power of your thoughts, words, and actions to others. And then
Mhm.
even taking it a step further when you're in a room by yourself, your thoughts,
Mhm.
words, and actions, and how that will in turn alter and influence the output you then go and give to others. And
Yeah.
so, the more you pull on this thread, that's why I'm so
Mhm.
big on the words best self, is because of the sentiment that everything we do is under some type of microscope, from our subconscious
Mhm.
to other people to the online chaos that is
Mhm.
the internet and social media. What's your advice for people to start growing awareness of how their
Mhm.
thoughts, words, and actions impact people?
Mhm. I like to say that you're not going to be in control of your first thought. It's going to come from somewhere in your subconscious, and it's going to be a struggle to ever control your first thought, but you can always control your second. And so when you're in a situation, that first thought is going to pop up, and it's going to be hard not to run with that first thought of, I'm not worthy of this, or I can't do this. But you can control that follow up thought of, you know what? I've trained for this. I'm ready for this. Think about times where you faced a challenge like this and you've gotten through it, right? You're still here. You're still willing to do it. And so controlling that second thought for me has always been so key. I face that a lot in athletics. I'm sure you've had it where you go out for a run in the first 2 minutes, you're like, there's no way that I'm doing this entire workout or this entire run, but somehow you get through it, right? Because you're in control of that second thought. You bring the panic level down and you say, I can do this. I've done this before. I'm just gonna slow down. I'm gonna control my breathing and I'm gonna get it done. And so controlling that second thought and always bringing something positive back into that conversation in my brain has always been so key. And remembering where I've been before and how I'm here now has always helped me control that second thought as well.
Yeah, let's dive into athletics a little bit, because this is something I know you have a lot of experience with, and
Yeah.
particularly running. I have
Mm-hmm.
done my due diligence in the ultra space and obstacle course
Yeah.
racing. What are a few of the biggest lessons you did learn? Let's take away that it was in college athletics for a second. Let's
Mm-hmm.
just think about the level of commitment, the adversity that you faced within yourself on those tough days. What are a few of the big takeaways you learned from the difficulty of showing up day in, day out, having to battle those inner thoughts, that you
Mm-hmm.
can relay just as life advice?
Mm-hmm. One of the most important things my coach ever told me was the rule of thirds. And I don't know if you've heard of this before, but within a season or within a year or whatever you're training for, your time span, a third of your workouts are going to be great. You are going to crush it. You are going to feel so happy with your performance. It's going to be a great day. You leave the gym smiling. There's another third where you're going to feel good. You got it done. It's a normal day. Good for me. And then there's that last third. And that last third is the workout did not go as planned. In the case of running, I'm not hitting my splits. I don't know what's going on. I'm just having a bad day. And on those bad days, I remember those other two thirds that are coming, right? This is just a one third. It's just a bad day. And everybody has bad days. Even Olympic athletes that we see on TV that perform for the world and set world records, they have bad days too. Sure, we don't see it on social media. It's not in their highlight reel before they step out, onto the Olympic track, because nobody wants to talk about it, but everybody goes through it. And so getting through those workouts, the one thing that repeats in my brain is, this is just temporary. This is just a third. It's a third. It's going to happen. This is part of the training process. And I know that those other two thirds are coming. It may not be tomorrow. It may not be in a couple days, but I know that it's coming. And if I can just get through this workout, I know that I'll be better for it and that better days are coming.
Well, and if
Mhm.
I can relay your words to you from another quote that I absolutely loved,
Yeah.
While the mountain peaks may have the best view, the most memorable moments are in the valleys.
Hmm.
Dig into that for me a little bit.
Yeah, I when I look back on college athletics now that I'm graduated, people always say, "Well, you'll remember all of the good moments," but I remember the bad moments too. I remember the runs where there's one in particular where we were supposed to run out to what we call the Little Stone Church and back, and it was a super windy day, and this stone church was nowhere to be found. It felt like I was running for years and we couldn't find it. And I was just having an absolutely terrible negative day in my brain. I did not want to be on this run. But I remember that day because my teammates and I were all suffering together, and it was such a valley. But we all endured it together, and we were cracking jokes through it and almost complaining together and bolstering each other up. And that is one of my fondest memories of cross country. And I also remember the races that went really well and the records that we set as a team. But it's those valleys where I knew I was digging as deep as I possibly had to in order to get to the top of that mountain that I have some of the fondest memories of, because it pushed me farther than I ever thought I could be pushed. But there's almost a fondness to it where I'm ready to get back in that valley again, because as soon as I go down, I know it's going to go back up. And that's always been my mindset is if I'm down right now, that means I'm just climbing to the bottom and there's an uphill that I'm going to have to do, right? You have to climb to top to get to the mountain. But if I'm in that valley, I know that mountain peak is coming. And so I'm doing something great and I'm working on something and I'm getting to the top. And that's what's exciting because you don't always know what's at the top. You don't know what your limits are until you find them and you push past them. So finding a valley has always been good to get to that top.
And in my experience, a lot of the most valuable life lessons
Mm-hmm.
are kept in the valley because,
Yeah.
again, this could be God, universe, whatever you want to label it.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a universal knowing that most
Mm-hmm.
people aren't willing to intentionally go into the valley. And
Yeah.
so the best lessons are waiting there for the people willing to kind of bring the fight. It
Right.
makes me think of last year I did a 100 miler, which probably never again. But
Yeah.
in that,
Fair
there
enough.
was a moment, and I'm so grateful. I don't know who captured the
Mm-hmm.
photo, but someone got a photo of this moment.
Mm-hmm.
It was raining every hour. It was raining a little harder. It was getting a little colder. I was
Mm-hmm.
around 65 miles at this point, and someone checked the weather and told me, hey, if you go just lay down in the tent for 15 minutes, put on some dry clothes, the rain should be done. It'll be great. And I didn't realize how much pain I was in until I laid down. And
Mm-hmm.
then my legs just lit up. I mean, I
Yeah.
was feeling it. And I'm in a tent. So it's not like I can not hear that the rain is not stopping.
Right.
And so
Right.
I hear my crew outside of the tent bickering about, oh, you shouldn't have said that. Oh, we shouldn't have said
Mm-hmm.
anything. And I
Mm-hmm.
climb out of the tent 20 minutes later and it's raining way harder. It's colder. And so I sit down and I'm trying to eat, which if I don't know how much you know about the ultra space, but it gets really
Mm-hmm.
difficult to eat.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I'm trying to eat good old peanut M&Ms and I'm sitting there
Mm-hmm.
and someone comes up and says, hey, it looks like it's not going to stop raining for another few hours. And you would have thought someone unplugged my soul from my body and the light just left my eyes. And there's a photo of me sitting there just kind of looking down, thinking, I have no idea how I'm getting up out of this chair.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't even a matter of, I don't know how I'm going to finish. It was, I can't possibly think of how
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to remove my butt from this seat to get up and go
Right.
and do another lap. And it was in just not even doing the next lap. It was getting up out of the chair
Mm-hmm.
when all hope was lost. I
Mm-hmm.
was the weakest I've ever been mentally, emotionally, physically. And in that was the most powerful lesson of that entire event. It wasn't sprinting to the finish line. It wasn't
Right.
getting the belt buckle at the finish. It wasn't any of this stuff. It was the moment where I thought I was done.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the valley, there's these indescribable gold nuggets that one gets just for the willingness to go through the valley. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
why I wanted to bring that quote up with you, is because
Yeah.
It's true. We post
Mhm.
the highlights, right? We want
Right.
people to see and we want ourselves to remember these peak moments, these beautiful ascensions that got us to the
Mhm.
mountaintop with the great view.
Mhm.
But there is no replacing the value that comes from the
Mhm.
valley. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you putting that out there. Now, I think kind of a tangent off of that, especially as it pertains to social media, the highlight reels that everyone posts,
Yeah.
myself included.
Mhm.
You say perfection is impossible, so don't let the
Mhm.
fear of being imperfect prevent you from starting.
Mhm.
I'm sure whether it's through pageantry, through athletics, through the field that you're in, you see a
Mhm.
lot of people fall into this trap of, well, if I can't do it perfectly, I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
What is it that got you to start and overcome that sense of, you know what, I'm going to fall on my face, but I'll bring my mouth guard and we'll be all right? What for you was it that motivated you or inspired you to get going despite imperfection?
Mhm. I think it was seeing other people's imperfection, getting close to people that I thought were perfect, that I thought were unattainable in positions of power, positions of prominence, and seeing them make mistakes or hearing them talk about making mistakes. And I thought, there's no way that that person had an embarrassing moment. There's no way that that person has ever faced a failure. You know, to me, they're Miss America or they're Miss Wisconsin or they're my boss's boss's boss. There's no way they make mistakes. And yet everybody does. It's unavoidable in life. And as soon as I saw other people that I revered so highly also make mistakes, I realized that mistakes aren't final. Embarrassment isn't final. I think as a generation, we're so afraid of being embarrassed all the time. We want to be perfect. We can't deal with embarrassment. I am a high school track and field coach, and my kids are afraid of embarrassment. They don't want to be embarrassed around their peers. But if you want to be your boss's boss, if you want to be Miss America, Miss USA, whoever it is that you want to be, you have to go through embarrassing moments and you have to have failures. That's just part of it. And once I realized that other people have those as well, people that I revered, I thought, well, I guess it's okay for me to do that too. And that's why I think it's so important on social media or in conversations with people to make yourself relatable and to talk about mistakes or embarrassment because it opens up the conversation. It makes you seem more relatable and it might encourage somebody else to know that mistakes are okay as well.
It makes me think, obviously, success comes down to the willingness to do the thing consistently and improve
Mhm.
over time until you get the result. But it almost seems like nowadays, part of the buy in to success
Mhm.
is the payment of embarrassment and failure.
Yeah. Mhm.
And it is so fascinating, right? Because once you go through it, and I've experienced this over and over and over again, the
Mhm.
fear is only built up in your head. And upon
Mhm.
execution of the thing and failing or getting embarrassed, it's really not that big of a deal. Like you're
No,
still alive, your parents
you're
still love you, your
okay.
friends still love you, you're
Yeah.
doing all right.
Right.
And it is just so fascinating how these things that they're not even real, they're just in our head,
Mhm.
are the thing that stop us from getting everything we want.
Mhm.
Now, okay, so I want to take it to the next level because just doing this podcast, getting to talk with people like you, I'm
Mhm.
always curious what it is that drives you. Like what for you, I mean, just on the macro level,
Mhm.
your level of commitment that you bring to everything because
Mhm.
again, you've had your failures, you've gotten your embarrassment, you've
Mhm.
hit the peaks, you've hit the valleys, but for
Yeah.
you, what is the underlying motivator?
Mhm. If you're familiar with David Goggins, he's mentioned a lot in the fitness and motivation world. He talks about how I don't want to get to the end of my life and see who I was supposed to be or who I could have been had I not given up. And I think that's a huge motivator for me is that I use a lot of visualization techniques in my life and I can see myself as who I want to be at the end of this. And I know that it's completely attainable. I'm just the only person in my way. Truthfully, I'm the biggest waster of my own time. If I drive myself to the gym and I have my clothes on and I'm sitting in the parking lot, I've already got myself there. Why go into the gym and not give it the fullest extent and leave? And so I know who I can be and I know what my goals are at the end of life. And I don't want to waste my own time and get there and then see who I was supposed to be, who I could have been had I tried, had I given that effort, and miss out on everything. And so anytime I have a goal, I envision myself being that person already at that finish line and how good it's going to feel, how great it's going to be to get there. And I know that it's completely attainable and I just don't want to miss out on it.
I share that sentiment very
Yeah.
closely. That is
Mm-hmm.
something, because it's so true, whether people want to face it or run from it, there
Mm-hmm.
is a finite timer that we're all dealing with. And
Yeah.
when that timer goes off, there are going to be some hard-hitting questions that you have to answer about who
Mm-hmm.
were you? What did you spend your time on? Who did you spend your
Right.
time with? How do you feel about the life that you lived? And
Mm-hmm.
I very much fall in the camp that you're in, which is I may fall short a lot. I
Yeah.
may make mistakes. I may do the wrong
Mm-hmm.
things, say the wrong things, but best believe I am sprinting the marathon through life to make sure that, like you said, I think about it. And I don't remember if it was David Goggins or Ed Milet or somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
but they talked about they imagine going to heaven or the
Mm-hmm.
next life or whatever comes after,
Mm-hmm.
and God has a list
Yep.
of like all the accomplishments and the traits and beliefs of the best version of you.
Right.
And then he pulls up you and
Right.
your life and your actual stat sheet. And
Mm-hmm.
to me, the best case scenario is it's identical. The worst case scenario is you are a total stranger to this ideal.
Right.
Now, for you, let's say you have that sentiment.
Yeah.
Whoever's listening, they believe that to be true. Again,
Yeah.
the name of this podcast is pretty on the nose with the best self blueprint.
Right.
So I'd hope they're in that pursuit. But
Mm-hmm.
there are so many people who they have the dream and
Mm-hmm.
they have the motivation in terms of they feel that when we're talking about that,
Mm-hmm.
I want to reach that point,
Right.
but they still aren't doing the things. What do
Mm-hmm.
you think it is that holds those people back?
It's truly themselves. Like I said, I think that we are our own biggest waster of our own time. And whether it's the fear of it, not wanting to get to that other side of fear, fearing failure, fearing embarrassment of it all, I think having motivation is great, but you have to put the work in. And the work scares people, right? It's not easy to run 100 miles, but it's also not easy to do the training to run 100 miles. You have to get up and you have to get out there and do it and commit to it. It's not easy to be United States of America's Miss. There were many sleepless nights where I was training or I was planning social media content or I was at 2, 3 appearances over the weekend when I could have easily been doing something else. But that motivation has to be put into action. And I think people have a fear of working hard and going after it. And they'll make any excuse in the book not to do it. I don't have the time. I don't have the resources. Yes, you do. To put it plainly, you absolutely do. You're just fearful of it. And once you can throw away all those excuses and get to that hard work, it's an adjustment, right? I'm sure when you first started training for your 100-mile race, you weren't exactly joyful. You weren't exactly excited in the first couple of runs, but it becomes a point where it's almost an obsession and you have to reach that goal. And once you work so hard for it, there is no giving up on it. But really, you have to get over that first hurdle of fear and throw away those excuses and let your motivation take over into your hard work.
I don't know if this rings true for you, but for
Mm-hmm.
me, I've noticed a lot of the times that I hold myself back, it's
Mm-hmm.
out of this feeling of if I put so much time and effort into this and I start to care so much about it and
Yeah.
then I lose it, that
Mm-hmm.
will hurt.
Right.
Do you think
Absolutely.
that's a piece of what it is that holds people back is not just
Mm-hmm.
necessarily the fear of failure, but the
Yeah.
fear of loss of something that they do care so
Mm-hmm.
deeply about?
I do think so. I think that we as humans tend to think that things are once in a lifetime experience, right? If I train so hard for this and then I don't get it, well then what? I've lost. What now? We'll do it again. right? That's the whole point of failure. That's the whole point of losing an experience, is that many times we call things a once in a lifetime experience. There are very few things that I feel like are really a once in a lifetime experience. You can always pick yourself back up and try again. But people don't want to think that far ahead. And so they think that if they lose or they don't reach that goal, that, well, I'm never trying again. And I think we stop ourselves from understanding that there are a lot of things in life that you can redo. There's a lot of things in life that you can do more than once, but we just can't fathom losing and having to go through all of that hard work again. And so a lot of times when we lose, we think that's it. And that's where we draw the period at the end of the sentence and we're done. But truthfully, you probably don't need to. You can probably go for it again. We just don't want to.
True that. True
Yeah.
that. No, yeah, it's I'm always just so curious because I want to get to know your perspective from someone
Yeah.
who you've done the things and you admitted it's not like every time you called your shot, you went for it, you got
Mm,
it, life is great, ride
right.
off into the sunset.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's just important for people, no matter where they're at, to listen to someone who you've called your shot and gotten it and done well with the things that you've gotten to propel yourself
Mm-hmm.
forward. But you're not shying away from the fact that it's not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not perfect.
Nope.
I've messed up. And just
Mm-hmm.
the vulnerability that comes from that, and then to
Yeah.
let people see like what are the thought processes behind it, what are the beliefs behind it, so that
Mm-hmm.
they can adopt those things. And that's
Right.
something I do think there are a lot of people who, even if they know that beliefs can be changed, they hold on to the beliefs about themselves
Mm-hmm.
so tightly out of
Right.
ego, out of fear, out of all of these things.
Yeah.
But hopefully this is a good reminder to just show people, if you want things to change, there's going to
Mm-hmm.
be pieces of you that you're
Mm-hmm.
going to have to let go and say goodbye to. And
Yep.
there's all the processes in the world that you can do that in a healthy way.
Right.
But just making sure that you're not holding yourself back from getting the things
Mm-hmm.
you want because of
Yep.
beliefs that you don't even want to have.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, you're standing in your own way. I tell it to people all the time. You are really, truly the only roadblock in your way. Everything else can be managed, but people don't want to manage themselves. They don't want to manage what's in here. Um, and so every excuse can be wiped away, but you're still stopping yourself. And until you can kind of remove yourself out of your own way, you'll never get there. You'll never reach that goal. And I learned that eventually. 10 years in a pageantry, I learned that finally. But I wanted to blame every external factor on why I didn't win, when truthfully it was just me not willing to take the time and to do it. Right. Oh, the judges didn't pick me. They just didn't like me. Oh, this, or oh, the lighting wasn't right, or this or that. It's really just me. I just had to work on myself and my skills and my abilities. But that was the last thing on the list I wanted to get to. But once I finally looked in the mirror and said, you know what? It might be me. I might be screwing it up for myself and I might need to work on it. Until I was willing to get to that point, I was just going to hear no's, truthfully. But
Right.
once I sat down and worked on myself, that's when I heard that big yes. And that's when everything changed for me. But I had to remove myself out of my own way, honestly.
Well, and with that too, I always think about this. Even
Mm-hmm.
if it isn't your fault, is there any utility in blaming
Mm-hmm.
anything besides yourself?
Right.
No, there's not.
No,
There's never
no.
utility in giving the power of progress to something
Mm-hmm.
you can't control.
Right.
Now, there's also a dance to navigate between blaming yourself and making sure that
Mm-hmm.
you're accountable and
Yeah.
having grace for yourself, because
Mm-hmm.
if you're just beating the crap out of yourself every single time you
Right.
don't get what you want, that's also not super effective.
No.
But I completely agree where even if you can totally justify and reason with the fact
Mm-hmm.
that there was an external thing that
Yeah.
caused the result you didn't want,
Mm-hmm.
I always just beg the question, is there any utility in giving the power to that person, thing,
Mm-hmm.
circumstance, whatever it may be?
Right.
And usually it's not.
Mm-mm. Yep. I agree.
Good stuff. All right. I want to dig into girls. which is a really
Yeah.
weird thing to say out of context. So
Yeah.
let me dive into that a little further.
Heard.
So, girls in real life situations is the social cause that you work with. If you can just
Mhm.
describe, first of all, what it is, what you do, and then why it is you care about this or want to make an impact with it.
Mhm. Yeah, so I've changed it a little bit slightly. I have started kind of rebranding it a little bit as Mentorship Matters, because of the impacts that mentorship had on me. And that was really the essential nature of girls in real life situations. They both are centered around my experience as a safety and health consultant and how I am truly a minority in my field and how uncomfortable that situation can be and how vulnerable you feel in that moment. I truthfully believe that I would not have stuck to my dream and my career had I not had powerful female mentors that guided me through it. And I know that there's other women in the world right now that are giving up on their dream, their career, whatever it is, because they don't feel supported. They don't feel like it's a viable option to them because they don't see themselves represented in that space. I thankfully had somebody who was a representative in that space that could lead me there. But not every woman has that opportunity. Not every young girl has that exposure to somebody like that. And so that's why I'm so passionate about mentorship and meeting girls in these real life situations and providing them with the tools necessary to move forward. And so one of the things I've done is I've created a mentorship workbook. It's actually going live soon on Amazon, which is very exciting. I'm not an author. I'm not an author. I did not go to school for journalism, graphic design, so it probably took me longer than the average individual. But I created a book called Mentor Mondays, and basically it's the answer to, well, I wish there was a book on this, right? We always hear, well, there's no book on how to get it done, there's no self. Well, now there is. So every Monday there is either a lesson or a call to action or a review of your strengths and weaknesses. It's something where you can help learn about yourself and learn how to mentor other individuals. And so it's for a whole year, every single Monday, you sit down, you work on this, and it'll give you something to focus on during that week to better yourself and to better those women around you. Because I always tell people, I wasn't in a position to go around and ask for a mentor or ask for help. It's not in our human nature to say, well, I want help on this. We just really hope that somebody else notices. I don't know why we do it, but there are people around you, specifically young women, that want help, that want a mentor, that want somebody to show them the way, but it's not in our society's practices to ask. And so this lesson, this journal, this workbook basically teaches you how to go out and how to help these young women and how to start that conversation that can be kind of uncomfortable at first, and how to mentor those women so that we're not giving up on our dreams, we're not giving up on our careers simply because we don't feel supported in them.
Now, two questions. The first one
Mm-hmm.
is it available now? Like, can people go on Amazon and get the book?
Yeah. So I'm receiving the final proof this weekend, which is super exciting. And then after I review the final proof, make sure that everything is good with it. It will be available. I believe you said this comes up on the 29th, I believe. So
Yep.
it may be up by then. It'll be available on Amazon through like KDP Publishing. So, and I set it up that it can go worldwide. So it's not just something that is available in North America. You can get it at basically any country that has availability to Amazon KDP, which again, I'm not an author. I did not go to school for journalism, graphic design, or anything like that. So it's been a really big, it's been a lesson for me. It's been a learning curve, but I love to do things I've never done before. And so once I had this idea, I had no idea even how to start. But now to see it in fruition is just mind blowing to me.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. I think that's super
Thank you.
cool. And to be able to stick with that, I mean, just thinking about the whole process of
Mhm.
not just writing a book, but writing a workbook that's
Yeah.
interactive, that you have to think about the
Yeah.
process and through line of each individual thing. Hats off to you, because that couldn't have been easy. But okay, so hopefully if it's available by the time this goes public,
Mhm.
there'll be a link in the description with an attachment to it. Even if
Yeah.
it comes out after the fact, I'll still link it so that
Perfect.
hopefully if someone stumbles upon this while it's available, they'll find it.
Oh,
Now,
great.
my second question
Yeah.
is this workbook specifically for women, or can
Mhm.
guys such as myself also enjoy and benefit from a copy.
Absolutely. Anyone can really benefit from mentorship and mentees. The reason that it's geared towards women is because of my experience and the thought process behind women often aren't seen and recognized in these spaces and don't have those resources available. I will tell you the cover is pink and purple. It is definitely a very, I mean, look at what I'm wearing. I'm a big pink fan. But I think that men can wear pink, have pink. So it's meant for everybody. It is geared towards starting the conversation in women's spaces, but anybody can benefit from it. In truth, I think it's a hard conversation to start with anybody. Like I said, not a lot of people want to open up and ask for help and ask for a mentor. It's a difficult conversation to have. So if anybody can benefit from it, I would love for them to have a copy in their hands and to benefit from it and find a mentee, and make sure that everybody is in the space that they belong in and that they dream of.
It's very cool to see how passionate you are about it. Yeah, I
Thank
am
you.
perfectly fine rocking a little pink on a notebook, so I will have to check that out for sure. But
Mm-hmm.
I am trying to figure out which direction I want to take this because there's just so much in that, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
the inspiration that comes from doing something that you aren't used to doing.
Mm-hmm.
There's the motivation and a call to action to people to kind of check yourself on both sides. Do you need
Mm-hmm.
help and you're just not willing to ask for it? Do
Right.
you have something to offer that you're not currently offering?
Mm-hmm.
Which one of those you want to dig into next?
Maybe the offering something that you don't even know you can offer.
Let's do
I
it.
think that I think that was a big inspiration for me, honestly. Um, Writing it, I had to go through a list of my strengths and weaknesses. That's one of the chapters is what are you really good at? What is something that you're strong in? Okay, and let's acknowledge what we're not very good in. And for me, that was basically graphic design, that was writing. And so I had to kind of gut check myself and say, okay, I may not be the best at this, but I'm going to go through the process and I'm going to learn. um, but one of my strengths is public speaking. One of my strengths is people, connecting with people. And so I knew if I could get past that weakness, I could get to my strength of getting the book into people's hands and talking about it. And so I think it's important to for everybody to know what their strengths and weaknesses are. I think we don't want to talk about our weaknesses very much, right? We don't want to seem weak to other people, but it's really important because you have to know what you're good at in order to give that to other people, but you have to know what your limitations are so that either you can acknowledge that and say that's not my area of expertise, but here's somebody who is really good at it, or to say, you know what, I'm not very good at that, so let's work on it, right? Let's get better at it. I'm not going to be a professional at graphic design anytime soon, but I did learn a lot and I did progress in my skills, and that's something I'm proud of, and that's something I'll always have going forward. And I'm glad I worked on that weakness. So doing a little check and knowing what you're good and maybe not so good in, I think is really important for people to do.
True. And it just sets the
Mhm.
expectations of what work is going to be required, right?
Right.
That's something in starting up the studio. I had never
Yeah.
had a physical space before. It was all
Right.
virtual coaching,
Mm-hmm.
one-off events where I would book a venue just to do an hour workshop or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And in starting the studio, I did exactly that. I wrote out
Yeah.
what are the things that I know I'm good at,
Mm-hmm.
bullet list them. Okay, how
Mm-hmm.
can I leverage those things? What
Yep.
are the things I'm going to have to do that I am not quite as good at?
Right.
And to your point, how many of those things can I take it upon myself to learn and execute? And
Totally.
which of those things remaining can I find someone else to help out with?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, just so everyone knows, I don't come from a place of being on a pedestal. It took me
Right.
2 months of procrastinating on still reaching out to
Mm-hmm.
a photographer to get some good looking shots in the studio of different promotional content. As you
Right.
know, a good photographer goes a long way as opposed to just
Absolutely.
me taking a selfie with a book in my hand.
Mm-hmm. Right.
In terms of the lead funneling automation systems,
Mm-hmm.
I am a toddler in that space, so I had to bring someone in who knows that. And
Right.
to your point, it's not easy to go to someone and say, "Hey, I have no idea
Mm-hmm.
what I'm doing. I can't
Right.
figure it out on my own. I need your help."
Yeah.
But just
Mm-hmm.
like the failure and fear side,
Mm-hmm.
once you ask, you'll realize it's so liberating to get someone who
Oh,
knows it that can take that weight off your shoulders.
Totally. And it'll turn out better than, honestly, with me, like it turned out way better than I could have really ever done. So super thankful to everyone that helped me along the way, because like you said, it's liberating, and honestly it really helped my goal and my dream of what I wanted it to be come to fruition. And I don't know if it would have happened had I just taken it all on myself and tried to figure it all out by myself. So sometimes you do just need to ask for help, truthfully, and that's a hard lesson to learn.
Right. Well, I'm excited for you. I'm going to have to keep
Thank
tabs and see
you.
how that goes, but
Exciting.
it is very
Yeah.
exciting. And it's
Yeah.
always such a unique experience when you have taken so much time and effort
Yeah.
into one thing, and then you
Hmm.
kind of gift it out to the world and say like, this is my new baby. Take a look.
Right. Here you go. Love it or
Yeah.
hate it. Here it is. So
I'm
yeah.
very excited for you with that. But
Thank you.
all
Thank
right, we'll
you.
start to wrap it up a little bit. I have two questions that I like to ask people at the end. The
Okay.
first one is, let's say I give you a microphone and every human being on earth a little earbud,
Yeah.
and like Thanos with the stones, I snap my fingers and magically everybody speaks English now.
Oh.
And you get to deliver one message to the world that you think people need to hear. What would that message
Mhm.
be?
Reach out to one another and see what someone else needs help on. Truthfully, I think we've lost our sense of community in society. I think that is largely due to the COVID-19 pandemic and us having to kind of draw within ourselves and separate ourselves from other people. And I think that we sometimes get a little too comfortable just being in our own world, that we don't realize how many people outside of our own world need help. And that ties into the mentorship piece that I'm so passionate about asking people, how can I help you? What is your dream? What is your goal, your aspiration? How can I help with that? But beyond that, I think that we don't have real conversations with each other anymore. Do you know your neighbor? Do you know what your neighbor does for a living, what they're passionate about, what their hobbies are? I think that we love to talk about ourselves. It's one of our favorite things to do, but we don't get to do it anymore. And that's why we put so many highlight reels of ourselves on social media, because we just don't get to talk face to face with people about what we're passionate about. So I would highly encourage you, reach out to strangers, reach out to people that are in your community that you've never met before, and strike up those conversations about how can I help, or what do you just love to do? Because I think we need to get our sense of community back. I think we need to get back that sense of, love thy neighbor and pay attention to the other people around you, and don't just exist in your own bubble and in your own world all the time.
Oh, I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
That is ironically the reason I started the podcast was during COVID, and even a little before COVID,
Hmm.
I would just find people I was inspired by, wanted to learn
Right.
from, and I would just shoot them a DM or a whatever form
Right.
of communication and say, "Hey, I love that you do this thing. Are you open
Hmm.
to hopping on a call for an hour?"
Right.
And after about a year of doing that, one of the people said, "Do you realize we're doing a podcast right now without doing a podcast?" And the next
Basically.
week, the next person I talked to, I recorded it, started the podcast,
Yeah.
and
Love
it
that.
is so true. There's something so filling
Hmm.
soulfully about learning from people, connecting
Totally.
with people, getting to
Mhm.
share your passions with people.
Right.
And it's like medicine, just like
Hmm.
good exercise, good nutrition, good sleep,
Hmm.
good recovery,
Hmm.
good connection with people who light you up and lift you up is a
Yeah,
very special thing nowadays. And
definitely.
I'm glad you said that, because it's true.
Thank
People
you.
need to take that to heart.
Hmm.
Now, the last question, and I just love asking this of everyone because I'm curious
Yeah.
what's true for you, but for you right now in your life, whether
Hmm.
it's a behavior, a belief, what's the next step in you becoming your best self?
Well, there's something in the works that I have been working on for a couple months along with my workbook. There is a next step that's planned, that I haven't announced yet. But what I will say is there's a next step in who I'm becoming. I'm continuing to do things that I've worked on for 10 plus years. And I'm really excited to share in a little bit. I'm not ready to divulge all my secrets yet. But I think next steps for me have been coming into myself and building a new identity. I graduated college last year, and I am no longer a collegiate athlete, right? That ends when college ends. And I'm in my full-time career. And so things that I based my identity on all the time when I'd introduce myself are no longer a present part of me, right? I'm no longer saying, hi, I'm a student at Whitewater or I'm a collegiate athlete. Those things are gone. And so I'm rebuilding almost a new identity for myself. And that's really exciting. You don't get a lot of chances in life to do that. So the next steps for me, which I kind of started when I graduate and I'm continuing now, is building a new person and building a new brand and becoming kind of that next step, that next woman in life. And it's been challenging. It's scary to kind of lose those pivotal pieces of your identity, but I'm slowly rebuilding and slowly learning who I am outside of those things. And it's been an amazing journey. And I'm excited to continue it in new spaces and in new parts of my life and really just to become the new Sarah, which sounds scary, but I've loved the process so far. And I'm so excited to see who I become even in a year's time from now as things evolve.
That's amazing. And that's a good wake up call for people too, is acknowledging as you step into the next chapter, whether it be a new job, a new relationship, a new hobby or endeavor, acknowledging there is going to be a new version of you that comes with it. Just like
Yeah.
if you download an app and they update the app, you got to
Yep.
go into the store and update the new version and get
Right.
yourself acclimated to it. So I think that's a good wake up for people who maybe they have switched into a new chapter, but they're trying to jam a square peg into a round hole by bringing their old self into it.
Totally.
I like that. Well, Sarah,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I appreciate you fielding my minefield of questions so eloquently. But
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank
thank you for
you.
the time.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Of course. And like I said, hopefully if that book is
Hmm.
able to get a link to it, we'll definitely throw it in the
Yeah,
description. But where else
absolutely.
can people keep up with you, what you're doing, what you're working on, the new version of yourself you're
Yeah.
becoming? Where do you
Yeah.
want to direct people to keep up?
Yeah, so if you're interested in keeping up, I am on basically all major social media sites. Because I have a unique last name, I've always been able to do my first name, Sarah underscore, and then my last name, Niehueser, and it's never taken because no one, for some reason, ever has my last name. So you can always pretty much find me by looking on any major platform, Sarah Niehueser, and you can follow along there.
Very cool. Well, yeah, I'll make sure to direct people to all of that in the description as well. But thank
Okay.
you again. And to everybody listening,
Hmm.
if you've ever gotten to this point in one of my podcasts before, I hold praise for anyone who invests their time and is intentional in leveling
Hmm.
up. Again, whatever avenue that is, if it's a specific pursuit, if it's you as a whole, if it's your life, thank you so
Hmm.
much for being the type of person to go all in and be intentional.
Hmm.
I'll give the YouTube spiel. If you liked this video, anything about it, that is why there's a like button. If you have questions, comments, concerns, agreements, disagreements, that's why there's a comment section. And if you know anybody who can find value in any of the things we covered, please, please, please share this with them. That is why I do this. That is why the guests come on, is so that we can make a big impact. So please don't hesitate to share. Other than that, you can see the apparel is in, it's behind me. You can take a look at it. You can head to the website. It's in the description. All of the best self stuff going on. I won't bore you with all that, but we'll leave you to it. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.